I'm Polly Warren and welcome to the Positive Perimenopause podcast. This is the place for some positive inspiration to help you through the rollercoaster ride of perimenopause. I truly believe that with the right support, knowledge and wellness tools, you can feel your best yet, because I'm learning this life phase can be a truly exciting and often pivotal time of life. With every episode, my mission is to support and empower you to own your menopause, because it's time to start taking care of the most important person, and yes, that's you. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast with me, your host, Polly Warren. I hope you are all doing well. As this episode goes out, I actually will be away from home. I'll be in Ibiza with my husband and with 18 of our friends. We're actually going for a few days away to celebrate his my husband's 50th birthday, which I'm really looking forward to. So I'm being organised. I'm getting this episode recorded and uploaded so that I can properly switch off. So I shall tell you all about that when I return. Just a quick reminder of my quiz, which I've got out at the moment, which you can take. And the reason I've created this quiz is because I know how frustrating it can be when you don't really know what is going on in your body, where you're at in your menopause journey. And sometimes just having the umbrella term for what is going on can be so helpful. So if that is you, and if you want to know, am I perimenopausal? Am I postmenopausal? Am I premenopausal? What am I? And you feel like it might be useful. And also to have some next steps you can take and start to take immediately, then go over to pollywarren.com/quiz and you can take the quiz there. It only will take you a couple of minutes. And I think you'll find it really useful. So this week, my episode is just me. It's a solo episode. I do really enjoy doing these episodes on my own, actually, as much as I love talking to my guests. It's a really nice process to really deeply think about a particular topic and my thoughts about it and to share it with you. So my topic this week is all about the morning routine, because my morning routine has been something which I've been doing now for a number of years. And it's actually something which a lot of people ask me about a lot, because they're always quite intrigued. What do you do? How do you get up so early? Why do I do it? So I thought I would dedicate an episode to the morning routine because it is something which I really, truly cherish and which I truly believe has the power to change the course of your day. But also, I'm going to say it, I think it can also change the course of your life. And I notice if I don't manage to do it for some reason, it does have a massive knock-on effect to the rest of my day. And although a morning routine is something which is beneficial, whatever stage of life you are in, I do believe that particularly during perimenopause and going into menopause, it is super helpful to do, because all of the practices I'm going to talk about today can so help with things like mood swings, with irritability, with our anxiety and that mental chatter, with our changing body shape, with trying to make the changes which we know are going to help, such as eating a more Mediterranean style diet or moving our body more. So it really will help you to implement some of these things which, let's face it, it's hard. Change is hard. But I just think doing some of this stuff in the morning is going to make it so much easier. So I thought today what I would do is tell you a little bit about my morning routine and how it all started, and then talk a bit more about morning routines more in general and what sort of practices are recommended to include and how you can start one. So if you want to start a morning routine, then hopefully you'll find this episode really useful. Or if you have an existing morning routine, hopefully you might get something out of this to enhance that routine. So let's go for it. Let's dive in. So when did my morning routine start? Well, it was really when I was teaching and I was struggling to find any time at all to exercise. Yet exercise was something I knew made me feel so much better about everything. It was good for my mental health. It was good for my physical health. And it was something I just knew that I had to do, particularly with 3 small children. So at that time when I was teaching, I was leaving home generally at about 7:15 in the morning to go to work. Luckily, my children had got to that stage where they would still be asleep at that time. So I did feel that if I left even earlier, actually it wouldn't affect them at all, because obviously that mother's guilt is always at play. You've got to try and be around as much as you can. And I have to say, I was really super fortunate because I had someone in the house who I could leave the kids with. And I know that's not possible for everyone, but if you can't, there is still so much you can do at home without having to leave the house. Anyway, I knew that at the time, the only time in my day to exercise was first thing before work. I had often intended to do exercise after work, but it never, ever worked. There was always something else which cropped up at work, or I often felt like I just wanted to get home and see the children. It just never happened. So I realized if I wanted to exercise, which I knew I did, it had to be first thing in the morning. And honestly, when I was much younger, I was never a morning person. I was a kind of person who at the weekend, or gosh, even worse as a student, I would just love to lie in bed till lunchtime. And I always struggled to get up for work. I was not an early morning person. But I suppose that changed when I had my children. Obviously that had to change because babies and small children, they wake up when they wake up, and you have to suddenly become, a middle of the night person and an early morning person. And then my children definitely went through quite a few years of being incredibly early risers. So, you have no choice, do you, at that point? Every morning, you've got to get up with them. So obviously this really helped me get myself out of the cycle of believing that I was totally useless in the mornings, because suddenly I had a lot of new evidence to suggest that, I can get up in the mornings, I can get up early, and I was going to be okay about that. So that definitely helped me along my journey. And I do think we do tell ourselves stories like, I'm rubbish in the morning, I can't do that. That was my story, but it's about finding new evidence that you can do it. We can change these beliefs. These beliefs hold us back and they can be changed. We're not stuck with them forever. Now, I appreciate that some of you will have small children and you will be in that cycle of having very early rises. And I do appreciate how difficult that can be if you want to get something done in the morning. So I just want to say, I see you, I feel you, I understand how hard it is. However, I still do feel that there might be space for you to be able to do some sort of practice in the morning before they wake up, or even, when they're awake. It's about trying to find the thing which works for you best. So for me, it started with some sort of exercise before work. So I'd set my alarm for about 6ish, and then I would go to the gym or I'd go for a run, and then I'd quickly shower and go to my job as a teacher. And I must admit, it made me feel amazing. Okay, there was probably a little bit of smugness in there, if I'm brutally honest. That feeling of having been up early and having achieved something when everyone else was asleep just made me feel great. Plus, let's not forget, all those gorgeous endorphins racing around my body really helped. And the fact that I'd actually done it, I'd got out of bed and I achieved it. I felt like I was already winning before my workday had even started. I felt good about myself, about my body. It was really a win-win situation. So this really was the first taste I had of how what you're doing first thing in the morning really, truly affects the course of your day. So this now kind of became a routine. And then I switched working as a teacher in schools to having my own tuition business. And although I didn't have to get up ridiculously early anymore, as I was much, much more flexible with my time, I still chose to go to a 6 o'clock gym session most mornings because I'd got into such a routine and I loved getting it done before the day started. And even though I had this flexibility now, I was still, life was still very busy, still had 3 children. And I still found that if I didn't do it early, if I didn't do the exercise early, often it still didn't happen. It would be one of those mornings where I just stayed in my gym kit all day and I just never got round to going. Also, at this time, I started to experience really bad back issues and joint pain. And actually, when I look back in hindsight now, that really was the start of my perimenopause experience. So I switched up the running. I was doing a lot of running then, to more strength training. And I joined a very, very local gym, literally 2 minutes from my house. So which was obviously incredibly, incredibly helpful. So it was very close to our house. It was this tiny gym and it was run by Sergey, the Latvian champion weightlifter, and very handsome, I must add. But it was so good, this gym. So I think at any one time, there could only ever be 8 people in there. And it was kind of like a group personal training, but you would turn up and he would just tell you what to do. And for the first time, I was growing muscles. It was quite exciting. I was getting stronger. I started to feel strong and I really loved it, which obviously really helped. And it was very different from what I'd known. I did miss the kind of sweaty endorphin high that high intensity exercise gave me, because this was everything but that. But at the time, it was just what I needed. So this was when my morning routine started to develop, because I knew that I needed to take action with this sort of new joint and back pain. I'd been to see a back specialist, I had an MRI scan, and the conclusions were to either have an operation on my back. I mean, honestly, I look back now and I just think it's crazy because it was obviously all hormone related, but this was what the advice I was given, to either have an operation on my back or to do nothing and take painkillers. And neither of these felt great options. So I took it upon myself to sort it out myself. And I just knew intuitively that I needed to stretch my body more. I was super stiff. Everything hurt. So that's what I did. I started to change up my morning routine. So instead of going straight out to exercise, I started stretching my body. I started doing a series of stretches, which I still do pretty much every morning. And in my past, I've done yoga classes, so I kind of knew kind of what sun salutation was. I knew what stretches felt good. So what I did do, and I still do, is I literally rolled out of bed, took 10 minutes and did a series of stretches. And I promise you, this has been incredible. It's been all the proof that I needed, that little and often totally and utterly works. Those 10 minutes every day have just been a game changer. To start with, I just couldn't get anywhere near my toes when I bent over. I couldn't get my head anywhere near the ground if I sat cross-legged. I honestly was just so stiff. It was all that running I had been doing. And those tiny actions, which I took nearly every day, not every day, but nearly, produced great results, because now I can touch my toes, I can sit cross-legged on the ground, I can put my head on the floor. I've still got really stiff hamstrings and it's still something I need to keep working on, but it has been amazing. And do you know what? Amazingly, my back pain, my joint pain, it really, really got better and it really helped. And actually, touch wood, my back pain is now so, I very rarely get flare-ups and my joints are fine, but that's probably lots of other things which I'm doing as well. But this, I honestly still believe this is so important for me. I felt like finally I was taking control of not just my mornings, but of my life. I know that sounds dramatic, but these small actions definitely helped at a time when everything else felt out of control, and it became really quite addictive. So once I started getting up every morning, it just became something I did. I became the person who gets up early every morning. And the way that our bodies works really helps us with this, because when you start to change your circadian rhythm, that's your natural waking and sleeping hours, you just wake up naturally anyway. It's what you do. And although it can be difficult some mornings, you do just get into a routine. It is absolutely possible to train yourself to be an early morning person. Anyway, more on this a bit later on. So gradually, as the years have passed, I've added other practices to my routine. So each time I feel that a practice is well and truly embedded, it then becomes much easier to add something else. So now my morning routine looks a little bit like this. So I still get up, roll out of bed. I do sort of 5-10 minutes of stretching. I go to the gym. Then will come back, sort the kids out, send them off to school. I often, whilst I'm doing that, juice celery. I won't talk too much about that here, but celery juice has been something I've been doing for years, and I've done it because it really, really has helped with gut issues. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, it's been amazing. And often when I'm doing that, I'll listen to affirmations, which I've recorded, and I'm going to talk more about that in a bit. I'll then have a shower, and this is quite a new addition to it. The last minute or two of the shower, I turn it right down to cold and have a cold shower. And then often I'll meditate. Not often, I always do meditate, actually pretty much every day. And some days I will journal. So it doesn't always happen in that order. Sometimes I get out of bed and meditate, and then I exercise after the kids have left. But those activities are generally what I do in the morning. Now, I'm not saying you have to do what I do in a morning routine, as you may well find your own activities which set you up for the day. But I will say there is lots of evidence that certain practices do help to set you up for success. I've read recently 2 really very good books about morning routines. So one's called Own Your Morning by Women's Health Editor-in-Chief Liz Baker-Plosser, and the other is called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And I really love Hal's book, and it's a international bestseller. He has so much evidence of how these simple morning practices have changed so many people's lives for the better. And it seems that a morning routine makes people more productive, more successful, happier. So there is definitely something in this. So what time do I get up? Well, I get up, my alarm clock goes off at 5:27. And I must just say, I would say probably 80% of the time I wake up at 5:26. It's so weird, but I just do. I used to get up at 5:30, but after reading Liz Plosser's book, I learned that she set her alarm for 5:27, and I just really like the randomness of it. So I changed it to 5:27. And then I'm generally sitting at my desk at work by either 8:30 if my husband walks the dog, or 9:30 if I'm walking the dog. But in that time, I have kind of got my kids up and sent them off to school, but I've done most of those activities as well. A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you. So you're probably thinking, what time do you go to bed then if you're getting up at 5:27? Well, I often aim to go to bed for about 10. Some days it's 10:15, other days it's 10:30. I mean, I love going to bed early. So if I can, I will go to bed earlier. But with 3 children, often that's quite tricky. Honestly, I promise you, if I knew that I was going to be getting up this early when I was younger, I honestly would have said to you, I just wouldn't be able to do that. But I promise you, with consistency, with commitment, you definitely can be a morning person too. It's been said that nobody actually likes waking up early, but everyone loves the feeling of having woken up earlier. And I totally agree with that. It's kind of like exercising, I suppose. Many of us struggle to get ourselves to the gym, but all of us love the feeling of having gone to the gym. And I do think that waking up with purpose always starts you off feeling empowered for your day. If you struggle to wake up early, I'm going to give you some tips on how to wake up a bit earlier, feeling really positive. And I've taken some of these from Hal's book, although I've actually been doing all of these before I even read Hal's book. So I think they're really, really useful. So the first one is to set your intentions before you go to bed. So I'm always being asked about how much sleep I need to be able to feel energized and happy the next day. Well, for me, it's generally 7 hours, although I always thought it used to be 8. But some days I get 6. We're all so different and we all have very different sleep needs. But one thing I do know is a lot of how you feel when you wake up in the morning is about what you're telling yourself in your mind. So if you go to bed worrying that you're not going to get enough hours and that you'll be tired in the morning, you'll most probably have the same thoughts when you wake up in the morning. And guess what? You'll feel tired because our body responds to what we're thinking. But the good news is it also works the other way round. If you tell yourself before you go to bed, thank you for giving me these 5 hours of sleep tonight. 5 hours is exactly what I need to feel rested and energized in the morning. Guess what? Your body is amazing. It can generate an abundance of energy from 5 restful hours of sleep. It's what you're choosing to do. And then in the morning, rather than starting the day with a negative thought such as, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, I didn't get enough sleep, I don't want to get out of bed, all of which is starting a negative spiral of thoughts first thing, why not say to yourself, yes, I get to have a great day, I'm looking forward to today. And when you're getting up to do your morning routine, you can congratulate yourself on taking charge of your life and taking steps towards your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. As Hal Elrod says in his book, he never had a problem waking up on Christmas morning. So he likes to think of every morning like Christmas. So try it. It does really work. I must admit, I lie in bed before I've even got out of bed and I'm kind of awake and the day's about to start. I do, in my mind, I say to myself, today's going to be a great day. And then I get out. I also sometimes actually, if I'm thinking, oh, I'd like to stay in bed, I do the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the counting back from 5, because that's a pattern interrupt into your mind and it really does work. So you can count down from 5 and then you jump out of bed. It does work. Having said all of this, however, if you are going to bed at, say, past midnight and want to get up at 5, that's probably not the best idea to do every night because you're going to end up feeling tired. Occasionally, that'll be fine, but not every night. So over time, you will want to start going to bed a little bit earlier each night. And I can tell you, after a few mornings of getting up at 5:27, after having a full day, you'll be ready for bed earlier. Also, let's not forget that during perimenopause, sleep can be so problematic. It absolutely has been for me. Waking up in the middle of the night sweats, not being able to go to sleep, and then that sense of panic that you can't go back to sleep and you're going to be exhausted the next day, and we're feeling tired anyway before we've even gone got up or gone to bed. So it is something to really bear in mind. But I would say to that this is more reason than ever to start a morning routine, because these practices are going to ultimately help with getting a good night's sleep. So if you're thinking that, I promise you it's still worth really trying to start. Okay, so that's the first tip. Second one is to move your alarm clock to somewhere where you actually have to leave your warm, snuggly bed to turn it off. So this forces you to get out of bed or you tolerate the noise of your alarm. So just that motion of getting out of bed will create energy. So this does help you to naturally wake up. My third tip is then to go and brush your teeth, splash some water on your face. I know this is super obvious, but these mindless activities such as brushing your teeth just gives your body that time to wake up, and it makes you feel fresh and more alert. Next, drink a glass of water. I actually always drink a glass of water with some lemon squeezed into it. After a night, whatever that might be, 5 to 8 hours without water, you're going to naturally be dehydrated. So drinking water will naturally rehydrate you and just give you more energy. That was number 4. So number 5, this is what I do. I always get dressed in my workout clothes. So this sets my intention and earns me my morning shower. So get into those workout clothes straight away. Don't hang out in your pajamas. Get in those clothes. And the last one, I personally really think once you've decided that you want change in your life, whatever that might be, you've got to have a certain level of discipline. Now, discipline is probably the most unsexy thing in the world, and no one really likes talking about discipline. And even the word itself sounds quite heavy, but it gets results. It's those small actions every day that gets you the results. I think I might have said that 3 times now in this podcast episode, but it's true. It really does work. So just doing it again and again, it works, as it did with my stretching, although it is still work in progress. So what practices to include? I've told you a little bit about what I do, but are there recommendations for certain types of practices to include in a morning routine? Well, I'm going to refer back to Hal Elrod's book, because I really love how he has a super simple acronym for 6 practices which can truly be life-changing. I was also very happy when I read his book that I actually was already doing these 6 practices. So there's got to be something in it. So the acronym is SAVERS, SAVERS. So the S stands for silence / meditation / breath work. The A is for affirmations. The V is for visualization. The E is for exercise. The R is for reading. And the S is for scribing or journaling. So let's go in order of these different practices. So some I'm going to look at in more detail than others, because actually, if each one of these things could have its own podcast episode dedicated to it. So I'm not going to talk too long about each one, but let's just have a little look at them. So the first one is S for silence or meditation. And I don't actually think I need to say too much here, as we all know that stopping, meditating, breathing, just sitting, whatever it feels good for you, is so beneficial for us in this busy, information bombarding world that we live in. So rather than reaching for your phone first thing in the morning and just being on immediately, which can literally immediately send your body into a stress state and start pumping out that cortisol, instead, if you spend some time being silent intentionally, your body is going to thank you for it. Plus, there are numerous studies on the benefits of practices such as meditation to your mental health, your physical health, and your emotional health. So if you want to know more about this, I have a whole episode about meditation, which is episode 5 of this podcast. So with Emma Reynolds. So go and have a listen to that if you want to hear a little bit more. So the next letter is A for affirmations. Now, what is the purpose of an affirmation? Well, it's to program your mind with the beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that are vital to your being able to attract, create, and to sustain your ideal levels of success. However, there is no point at all by just mindlessly reciting words which just mean nothing to you, which are totally unbelievable, such as, for example, I'm a millionaire. If you were to recite that, you're not going to believe it. Your brain and your subconscious know you're not, so it's just not going to work. So to start with, your affirmation it's got to clearly articulate exactly what you want. But then the important thing to include are your whys. Why do you want it? So for me, for example, I want to create a successful business helping women navigate their menopause journey. And my whys are because I don't want anyone to suffer like I did. And I know that women don't have to. I want to help. So that's one of my whys. That's what really spurs me on. And I can really feel into that. But I've got more than that. I've got another reason I want a successful business helping women is I want to earn enough money so that my husband can be released from the pressure of his job and do a job that truly lights him up. And that really drives me as well. So I want to earn more money so he can actually have some time to find what he loves. And my other big why is I want to be a role model for my children, to show them that when you follow your purpose, when you follow doing something that you love, it can bring abundance in so many ways, in happiness, in fulfillment, in financial abundance. So that for me is a really big why. So being crystal clear on your deepest whys will give you sort of a sense of unstoppable purpose. So that's really important in your affirmations to include. So the next thing in your affirmation is to really commit to who you need to be to create it. So get clear on who you need to be in order to go to that next level. So for me, there's the dog getting up. So for me, I need to be confident. I need to be persistent. I need to be resilient. So in my affirmations, I can say, I am resilient. I'm committed to being persistent. And that leads me on to the last bit really of doing an affirmation. It's kind of stating what you're committed to doing to attain what it is you want. So which actions will you need to take on a consistent basis to make your vision for your ideal life a reality? So for example, if you wanted to lose weight, say, your affirmation might say something like, I'm 100% committed to going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and running a minimum of 10 minutes on the treadmill. It might be, I'm 100% committed to eating a rich and nutritious diet. Okay. For me, mine is I am committed to putting out a podcast episode every week. I'm committed to continuing my own personal development, which is essential for me to be able to help others, because as a coach, I can only take someone as far as I'm willing to go myself. So that's just an example of just really going deeper into affirmations rather than just sticking at that surface level. Ultimately, in order for your affirmations to be effective, it's important that you really tap into your emotions whilst you're saying them. So have fun with it, but just make sure you really feel them. I actually don't read mine. I've recorded my affirmations and I listen to them. And I do think this is a much more powerful way to do them, because when you hear your own voice, it kind of goes into a deeper level into your subconscious. And I must admit, every time I listen to them, it really fires me up. It really gives me a sense of like, yes, I can do this. So I'm a great believer in affirmations. As long as you believe them, you feel them, I would give them a go. So then the next letter we have in Savers is the V for visualization. Now, I tend to do this as part of my meditation, not every day, but some days. And there is some really amazing research into visualization, and I find this super fascinating. There was a scientific study with 3 groups of subjects. So there was group 1, who were given a finger contracting exercise to do for 1 hour a day, 5 days a week over a 4-week period. Group 2 was asked to do the same, except only mentally in their heads. In other words, they had to visualize themselves doing the exercise. And then group 3 was the control group, and they weren't asked to do anything. And the results showed that the greatest gain in finger strength was from group 1, obviously, who had 30% greater strength than the control group. However, group 2, who mentally rehearsed, showed a 22% increase in finger strength compared to the control group. That's only 8% less than the group who actually did it, which is just amazing. So the power of the mind, it actually produced a physical effect on the body. So I'm doing, as you might have heard already, I'm doing the Brighton Marathon in April. It's my first marathon. I've been doubting, can I do it? Can my body do it? I don't know. But I will definitely be visualizing myself running those long training runs before I do them when the time comes. And I'm also going to definitely be visualizing myself crossing that finishing line. When you visualize what you want, what you do is you stir up emotions that lift your spirits and pull you towards this vision, your vision. And the more vividly you see what you want, and the more intensely you allow yourself to experience the feelings you'll feel once you've achieved it, the more you make the possibility of achieving it feel real. Okay, so now we're on to E for exercise. I don't need to say much on this, although this is the one thing I know personally I just can't do without. It just affects my mood. It affects how I feel about my body. As I've said, it helps with stress. And remember, exercise doesn't have to be running or going to the gym. It can be dancing in your kitchen, or going for a really good walk, or going and doing yoga, or squatting whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil. So it's about finding something which works for you. And it could just be a couple of minutes in the morning. It doesn't have to be a full-blown workout, but just something to get that energy moving around your body. Next, we are on to R for reading. Now, I don't personally really do this as part of my morning routine, although I do love the idea of reading a page or two as part of it. But I do tend to always have a few books on the go. Some of those are in book form, some are audiobooks. I also listen to a huge number of podcasts when I'm walking the dog or out and about. I think reading is more about constantly broadening your horizons and getting informed about issues which relate to you, such as, for example, learning about menopause. Or sometimes reading can just be a really lovely way of just zoning out. If you've got a good novel, there's nothing better. For me, I know that the time I read most is when I go on holiday, and I absolutely love it. But I also think there's a lot to be said for bringing that little bit of joy into each day, into your life. So I like this idea of maybe reading 1 or 2 pages first thing in the morning. And the final one, which Hal Elrod talks about, I can't say his name, Hal Elrod, is S for scripting, which also can stand for scribing, or actually is journaling. So this is such a great way to get your thoughts out of your head and onto the page. I don't journal every day, but I probably journal a few times a week. I kind of do it when I have an urge, but I know some people absolutely swear by it. What I really do love is going back and reading some of what I've written in the past, because if I'm honest, I'm always quite impressed with some of my thoughts. And it can be really very enlightening to where your thoughts are going and how your brain works. And I think it can be such a useful tool, particularly if you've got a lot swimming around your head. It can really give you some clarity to your thoughts. I want to finish by highlighting that you don't need hours for a morning routine for it to be beneficial. In fact, Hal in his book says you can do it in 6 minutes. That's 1 minute for each of the savers. So imagine the first 6 minutes of your morning looking like this. So in the first minute, you envisage yourself waking up peacefully with a lovely big yawn, a smile. Instead of rushing, you sit quietly in purposeful silence and calmness, breathing slowly. Maybe you're appreciating the moment. You're totally present. In the second minute, you listen or you read your affirmations out loud from top to bottom, looking over what you're committed to, what your purpose is. And that can really re-energize you to take the actions necessary to live the life you truly want. Okay. The third minute, you close your eyes and you visualize what it's going to feel and look like when you reach your goals. Or you can visualize your day going perfectly in the way that you want it. You're having a lovely family day, or you're experiencing the joy of what you'll create. The fourth minute, imagine taking 1 minute to just write down some things that you're grateful for or what you're proud of. In the fifth minute, maybe you just read one page from a book. Maybe it's a really inspiring book. And the last minute, stand up and spend the last minute moving your body. Maybe it could be running on the spot, or it could be doing some stretches, or it could be doing some sit-ups or press-ups. It will immediately generate energy and increase your ability to be alert and focused. So that would be 6 minutes. I'm going to try that. And obviously, if you want to do each of these for longer, for 5 minutes each or 10 minutes each, it would be great. But maybe try with 1 minute each. We all have 6 minutes in the morning. We can all get up 6 minutes earlier. As you've probably realized by now, I am a super fan of the morning routine because I know that if you want to make changes in your life, whether that's with food, with exercise, with managing stress, with your relationships, starting some of these practices in the morning is definitely going to help. I'd love to know whether you already have an existing morning routine and what it might be, what you do, or whether you feel inspired to start one after listening to this. So let me know how it goes. And actually, I'm just going to point out here that accountability is proven to be one of the biggest factors for success. So you're 60% more likely to follow through if you tell someone what you're doing. And that increases to 95% more likely if you actually make an appointment with someone. So accountability is so worth doing because it works. So tell somebody, say to someone, I'm going to start a morning routine. Right, that's it from me today. I hope you found today's episode useful and inspiring. Remember, nothing changes in your life if nothing changes. So starting to make little changes in the morning will set you off onto a new path of feeling more in control of your life, because you have the power to create the life you want. You really, really do. I think that's a really good place to finish. Let me know your thoughts. I always love to hear. And use me as an accountability partner, or find someone else as your accountability partner. Have a really, really wonderful week. Don't forget, if you want to take my quiz, you can go to pollywarren.com/quiz, or you can send me an email at info@pollywarren.com, or come over to Instagram at pollywarrencoaching. Have a wonderful week. Hope you might be inspired to start that morning routine.